So Pat, how far did you run?
10K, 6.2.
Nice.
And how? And who was chasing you? What animal?
All righty. So we'll call the meeting to order, noting that everyone is present. I'd like to welcome Katrina today for coming to our board meeting. Thank you as a student representative, and hopefully Mariah will be able to join us as well. So I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And thank you for adding the flag to the agenda. It's very helpful. The mission statement: the Viroqua Area School District provides a quality education for all students that inspires continuous learning, positive relationships, curiosity, and compassion in an environment that welcomes diversity while developing respectful and responsible citizens. So spotlight on education today. We have Mr. Thu here, and I can only speak for myself at this particular moment, but as a board, we just all want to thank you for the presentation. It was absolutely fantastic, as well as all that you've done this year to think outside of the box to give our students that musical experience that a lot of students haven't had this year. And your program outside of the MH was fantastic. The Senior Living Center, marvelous. And the performance on this webcast was just very, very impressive. So I don't know if you would like to speak at all to the experience of the year, because I'm going to spotlight you.
Wow. Well, thank you. You know, it's good fun, and it's fun to think outside the box. A bit challenging at times, but the students make it all worthwhile. They grumble and grouse, but they also do a great job working hard and try to make the best of the situation. So it's easy to do, and I enjoy it.
Well, do you know how many hits you've gotten on the podcast?
No,
No idea?
no, no.
It was really well done, and my understanding is you were the first one to do it, and you spoke so professionally and gave so much energy to it. It was really just perfect.
I think it's going to be a good program.
Absolutely, if you're starting it, but we just can't thank you enough. So.
Thank you.
And what you're putting on the instruments so that students can perform, you know, that's fantastic. We got to see the choir performance. That was marvelous as well. But it's a complicated year, and you guys have really stepped on a million levels. But you guys have really stepped up.
I appreciate the administration letting us play, because I would say more than 80% of my peers, they haven't seen a student in their music rooms since the 13th of March.
Exactly.
And so giving us what we need to be as safe as we possibly can while we play our instruments or sing or play orchestra equipment. I mean, it's very appreciated. Thank you.
Wow.
It was just amazing to listen to that and so fun. And of course, I actually thought it was a little fun to listen to the fact that it was a former employee's wife that was doing the interviewing. So I just thought that was just fun to listen to. It was great. It was a good thing for our district and stuff. So appreciate it very much.
Really good for our kids. And I hope that in the future that these types of events continue, because I know being married to a healthcare worker, I mean, the hospital, the staff there just went on and on and on about how special that was.
Yeah, they're a good crowd.
Yeah. Well, please give our thanks to the rest of the music department as well.
I will do that.
And I hope it's a good 2021 for you.
Yes.
So, and thanks for attending. The next item is welcome visitors, and I don't think we have any, Beth. Is that accurate? All right, thank you. Item number 6, Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, proof of public notice, approval of the agenda, December minutes, and voucher summary 1 in the amount of $339,572.44 as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? With that, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Action item 7, a motion to approve the voucher summary 2 in the amount of $264,131.46 as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Vicky, is there a second? Matt? Any discussion? The only thing I'm going to say is, Mike, I don't think we thank you enough, but you always make the information very clear and give us very thorough numbers in all budget areas. So thank you for that. With that, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I abstain, and I'm the lone abstainer now, so my own little world. Motion carries. Item D, donations over $250. Motion to accept donations in the total amount of $27,408.17. $16,908.17 is from the Viroqua community for the P school lunch kit. $500 from the Condon Oil Company, which is Main Street Mobile for 2020 Education Alliance grant, and $10,000 from Crop Organic Valley for K-12 Educational Enrichment grant. Obviously, with thanks for their generosity for all of these amazing gifts. Is there a motion to accept the donations as presented?
So
Is there a second? Any discussion? I did ask if there was just a little bit more information about the school lunch debt. Is that the total amount that we had? Did that cover it?
Well, I believe Mike's got some more information, but yeah, we had an overwhelmingly positive result there to raise $16,900 in a couple, in a couple of weeks. What was it, a month total? It was absolutely amazing. And so, as we talked about in the last meeting, that support from our community is just, it's there. And they thought that this was absolutely a noble cause, and yeah, we're going to have a ton of families starting next year with a zero balance, and that's going to be just awesome, just awesome. So, Mike, you have anything to add to that?
Sure, and our policy says that we accept donations over 250, and we had a number of course, over 250, some under 250. It was neat. I mean, there were students, there were parents, grandparents, people that you wouldn't know were connected to the school at all, just really felt strongly about it. And so, I mean, it truly was from across the community, which was really great. The $16,908.17 far exceeds what we had else.
Okay.
That number that Christy had presented earlier was $8,860. So that those additional funds will be set aside to a lunch fund for kids account that will be used for the same purpose that we, that this is also being used for. And we have had in the past, but without a formal fundraising effort on it. We always carried a couple $1,000s in it at a time. So yeah, it was just overwhelming, and Christy just every day just was even more surprised. So good job to them and getting this taken care of. This has been building for quite some time.
That's marvelous.
Yep.
Now the grant, the Alliance grant, can you share what that is?
The Organic Valley one or the kind?
No, it
Mobile
says mobile, Main Street Mobile,
Yeah, mobile.
the
is
500.
part of their commitment to their communities. Want us to they want to support STEM education. And so in the communities in which they operate a mobile, that we have a mobile station. Mr. Oldham gets us this every year. It's something he applies for and then gets awarded. And And we've received it over the last 3 or 4 years. And, you know, we kind of look at it and say, okay, elementary school, what are you thinking here? And, you know, now with the ending of school at the end of last year, they also have last year's too that they can, so I'm thinking we can do something really fun with it this year. And I've tasked a couple of them with think outside the box, STEM, you know, STEM type of stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
And then Organic Valley is just always so amazing. But the enrichment grant, is that something specific to organic?
I'll let Tom kind of take that one a little bit.
Yeah, so apparently they've been, you know, doing around $10,000 for a few years now. I don't know how far back it goes,
Yep.
but and we brought it to DLT for the initial discussion. We have not looked in exactly on what it's going to be. It's all about enrichment opportunities for kids, something that they would not be able to do in a typical year. So it's not something that we should be, you know, backfilling or, you know, saying, hey, we were going to do this anyway, and now we're just going to transfer these funds over here and help Mike balance the books. Sorry, Mike. But, you know, as we're going forward, so some very cool things have come up, you know, so there's some hydroponics pods that have been brought up. There's been also activities where we would go on field trips, not right now, obviously, everyone out there, not right now. But as we're going forward, I think, you know, some very cool experiences will be afforded to our kids that we wouldn't have been able to do in the past. So it's all about enrichment, and it's all about giving our kids some opportunities, and especially this year. I mean, it's so tough right now for our kiddos, and if we can give them a little bit of a you know, something unique, we're gonna do that. So yep, so we'll continue to go through that process with DLT and go from there.
So the board members that attended the school board convention, we saw the hydroponics last year. I know we, you know, we had discussed what a very cool concept that was, but it, you know, it definitely had a price tag to it. So, you know, whatever is decided, I'm sure will be spent in a very positive way, but it's remarkable.
Yes.
Any other discussion? With that, all in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries with much thanks. Item C, appointment. Motion to approve the appointment of Lisa Anderson, a part-time English language learner teacher for the rest of 2020-21 school year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
So we have
I'll
a
second.
motion by Kim and a second by Marina. Any discussion on this new hire?
Is there, Karen Deal used to do that. Now that she's not still, is there an additional need? Is that what's happening?
There is, yes.
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? It seems to me that we're very fortunate to have somebody locally to fill this position. That's typically a hard to fill position to begin with, and the person is very qualified. So I feel very fortunate that we have this individual in our area wanting to support these students. All right. With that, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2021-22 administrative contracts. Motion to approve these contracts as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? The only thing I would like to say is thank you. Thank you to all of our administrators for the work that you're doing, the work that you have done. And we look forward to working with you, hopefully in a little less stressed, if that's at all possible. But thank you all. Any other discussion? With that, all in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Establish open enrollment spaces for 21-22. Is there a motion to establish these spaces as follows? Unlimited availability for Viroqua Elementary School, Viroqua Middle School, or Viroqua High School in grades 4K through 12, regular education and special education, early childhood, 2 spaces, elementary school, 2 spaces, middle school, 1 space, high school, 1 space. The charter school enrollment is designated by each school. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I do know that this can be a little complex, and I'm hopeful that we're meeting the needs of our students and the families that open enroll as best as we can. And I wish we had more spaces. Looks like there's not a ton.
And the big thing with that is trying to find that balance of what our staffing can provide for the students that are coming into the district. And I think Kathy and her crew has done a great job of finding that balance.
Good. All right, with that, all in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. WASB resolutions. Motion to accept the WASB resolutions as recommended to give the board delegate, which is Matt, direction when voting at the school board convention. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Have you all read through the resolutions? Somewhat. I found them to be much more straightforward in the past and much fewer of them.
Much fewer.
Oh my goodness.
It's like 6 pages.
Right.
There used to be 20 or 30 or whatever.
Well, you know, you've been our representative for years.
Oh, we could go hours and hours.
Yeah.
if we needed.
They knew Matt was going to be
I know.
transitioning to that role, and so he tried to figure it out. Yeah, right.
I was shocked because I was thinking that I could think of a million things that I thought were going to be on there and it just wasn't.
But they're pretty straightforward and pretty much reflecting exactly some of the needs that are now, and even, we talked about broadband a lot, but I think that whole thing has certainly come in light of the pandemic, that has come to the forefront in everybody, because you can't, some of our students, we couldn't meet their needs without extensive things done by the district to get them what they needed for broadband.
Well, and the governor has, if those dollars go through, has moved forward quite significant dollars to expand broadband, and hopefully that will be of assistance as well. You know, the school start date wasn't on there. I was surprised because if there's a year that I would have thought for flexibility for the state, the start of school, this would be it.
Mhm.
So I will say you have a meeting before, and I don't know if they're still doing it the same way this year. In my opinion, it would be nice to have that added because we certainly would like some flexibility on when we can start our school, especially now. So I don't know if you're comfortable with that or not, but that would be my only suggestion. Is anyone opposed to that? Tom, are you opposed to that?
I am not opposed to that, and what we can do is we can look into, how we about that, because if this is, the resolutions, were already submitted, we can talk about if there's an additional process. If not, then.
There is, the
Okay.
day before,
Okay. Sounds
or
good.
the night before.
Mhm.
There's supposed to be some tweaking, but that's a pretty simple one that's been on there before.
Yep.
It would just be flexibility for the start date of school.
Okay.
But other than that.
I wondered if they had a
Mhm.
forethought of, if legislatively know that there's going to be something, that's why they didn't.
Mhm.
Because I have heard that a little bit, that's one of the things in there.
Yeah,
but-
they're talking about it. I don't know if WASB has a particular stance that they've taken on it, so that
They've
might
been
be
positive for
before.
it.
Yeah,
Right, so that's why I just didn't know if maybe they
Maybe they
knew
know,
that there was
yep.
something, so they didn't push it as being a resolution, but I don't know.
But then maybe that would actually show that a resolution went forward, maybe it'd be successful.
Has that not been the case all the time? Okay.
Shockingly, it has not been the case. But thank you, Matt. Have they been pretty clear about how you're going to participate and all that good stuff?
Okay.
And how long will it last?
As long as they want it.
As long as they want it.
I think it could last a long time. I see some of those topics, you're gonna get some people from all over the state and they're just gonna talk. Good luck. I look forward to hearing about it. With that, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Informational items. Preliminary 21-22 budget. Mike, this is exciting. How much money are we gonna get?
Yeah, so, and it's funny, the nice thing about computers and if you get to look and see what you did last year as you're getting ready for this year. So, it's always January. Yeah, it's always, oh, we're just starting, we're, whatever. And I told Tom, even more so this year, I mean, because, usually we're pretty confident, and even last year at this time, we were still pretty confident where we were going to project out for our enrollment. And we're, like every other school district in the state, we're not confident where we're going to predict out in our enrollment for September. As I showed you in my little presentation, we trended downwards, and that's what we anticipated. Now, these are enrollment numbers aren't necessarily what is here, because we did provide those virtual options. One of the unknowns is how many of our students will come back here as opposed to virtual and everything like that. So it's difficult. Now, there is hold harmlesses and there is declining enrollment exemptions which mitigate that, but if we're talking next year's budget, that's one thing, but over the next 2 to 3 years, that can really, really impact where we're at. And it's not just on the revenue limits and the general aid formula, but it's also on the per pupil, as I said, and that is outside the revenue limits. And they started adding more money to that about 5-6 years ago, as a way to provide schools more, the ability to spend more money because it's outside of the revenue caps. And when more money goes into the aid formula under the revenue limits, that reduces property taxes. That doesn't actually provide more spending for school districts without a corresponding increase in the revenue limit per pupil. The per pupil aid is outside of that. So, and that's the way that they've approached doing it. Will they pull back some of that? We haven't heard that. The folks at Baird haven't indicated that. It is in statute, so they would have to actually, do that through an action. But that's another variable. And then, as Angie was saying, the CARES money, we did receive an allocation, CARES, and also the governor's allocation, which we'll call GEAR. We received both of those, and as I said in there, totally to the Viroqua area school district was $530,000. And that did have an equitable participation, which meant we did share it with our local private schools, consulted with them and addressed their needs that they needed to deal with the same pandemic that we were dealing with. And they focused a lot of theirs on social distancing, outdoor classrooms, air quality improvement, and that type of thing. As did we. We've invested in the air handlers throughout the district. But our biggest, component to date was getting those Chromebooks here on a schedule a lot quicker than what we had planned. That will set us up for the next 3 to 4 years as far as, being more mobile and capable of addressing this. And the other thing that it did was it allowed the teachers to actually see the light as to, okay, I'm going to invest in teaching this way, but if the kids can't ever receive the information because they don't have the devices, there's only so far I can go with this. The fact that now that we can get that will get us in that next step to a more of a virtual component. And then we've got the ESSER 2 funds, which we still have not received a full allocation that I've seen yet, Tom.
Nope.
Okay.
To get
And they've been telling, and just on gross numbers, with what was awarded to the state of Wisconsin to plan on about 4 times. Now, how they split that up is still, up to a formula. If it's based on the same Title I formula, we're gonna do very well again. If it's on the governor's, the gear, we will do very well again. I mean, we were one of, I think I said 169 school districts that received the gear funding. That was not something that everybody did. You had to meet a bunch of different criteria. Internet access, broadband, that type of, access to virtual equipment was one of them. So hopefully we would that. So we've started, even this morning, we're meeting. I'm meeting with building and grounds. What do we need to do for our air handling yet? As it gets warmer in the summer, in the spring months, we focus so much on getting those iMods, and that was a big step. But we still have had problems with air movements and stuff in the summer with humidity issues that we've got at the elementary school. Whether or not we're going to have carpeting in the classrooms at the elementary school. That was one of the first things we identified as an issue for each in the classrooms and being able to keep all that clean. Those are things that we have already started, the process of looking at. And then understanding, Kathy, John, Jason, and Pat and I have been talking, we know we are going to have students that are going to need to get caught up. And that might mean smaller class sizes. That might mean some additional support. We've got to look at that. And, typically with these types of fundings, you're hesitant because you don't want to hire somebody and then have to lay them off when the grant fundings are gone. But in this case, I think we'd all agree, this is an acute problem. We've got to get this addressed and get some of these kids caught up. And if we've got the space and we can figure out a way to do it, we need to do it. So we need to come up with a grand scheme plan. Once we know what that number is, I think we'll have a lot more comfort moving forward with that. And it will, be a combination of a bunch of different items. Mr. Zilke's looking at increasing Wi-Fi capabilities in the elementary school, making our teachers more mobile in their computing needs. A lot of them already have laptops. Maybe all of them will have laptops with, basically stations that can go quickly if they need to. It's a great step forward for the district. It really is.
I know that once I heard about this, your mind starts spinning. And I look forward to hopefully them giving us some flexibility that allows us to do some things with it that would really benefit our students that aren't perhaps on that list. And then I was also wondering, so for transportation, for example, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this, do we need more buses because we can't transport kids at the same capacity? And I know we just purchased buses, but you guys are evaluating all of that, and what does that look like for us?
It's something we've talked about. The bigger issue there is somebody to drive it. I think we can have as many buses as we need to, but the finding bus drivers right now is not an easy task. Just like every aspect of education right now. I mean, it's hard to find somebody that wants to do that, and we continue to look. Randy continues to seek out those that can sub for us and get their foot in the door, but it's still tough.
Well, and even you don't want to spend money that you're not going to be able to spend in the future, obviously, but just because of COVID, are we going to pay bus drivers more so that we can get more bus drivers, or that might not even be the issue or the problem?
Yeah, I think a big issue is just the new CDL requirements.
Yes.
And finding them that will do it. So.
But I would say nothing's really off the table. They have opened some of the expectations for those requirements. It's still not a free-for-all, like go spend this wherever you want to, but They did give us some more options other than, just trying to increase that infrastructure piece, that technology piece that really was the focus of the first round.
Well, even the space out here, we have this green space out here, I don't know. There's just so many things that you think of. Could that be utilized to handle more students? So class sizes are smaller, there's just a million options. And it seems like a lot of money, which of course it is, but I'm certain that our administrators will find many wonderful ways of spending it.
The first allocation was a lot of money, and then we did well.
Yep.
We got through it quickly.
Yep.
It went quickly. And so, these things aren't cheap either. 500 Chromebooks that you guys saw this month, that's a big number.
So the windows that we have replaced, can that be paid for out of these funds, or since that happened in the past, that cannot be utilized?
I would have to look at that, Angie. They do allow some to go back. There is that supplanting rule where, we had budgeted, we had allocated. But we can look into that.
Just thinking that maybe it gives you a little bit more flexibility moving forward.
Right.
I don't know, but that was very expensive.
It was very.
Well, we look forward to hearing about all of the wonderful ways that those dollars are going to be utilized to help our students and our staff. That'll be fantastic.
Mike?
Yes, Robert.
When I'm looking at the enrollment and then thinking about the 500 Chromebooks with a life expectancy of 3 to 4 years, and then all the extra funding that came with CARES and the gear, looking forward, it looks like we could end up with 60 less students in our 3-year average in another 2-3 years than we have today. How is that going to affect our budget in those years?
Yeah, and that was one of the, that was one of the things Mr. Zilke was always real hesitant to commit to a 1-to-1 because of that ongoing every year or every third year, however you look at it, it becomes an every year issue. And this definitely accelerates up and frees up some budget amounts from his budget in the coming years because he accelerated those purchases up. But as far as I'm understanding, we're still not looking at a 1-to-1, situation where we could. He feels confident that we can maintain the carts system that we've got out at access for the staff and the students with this, and then supplementing it a little bit each year. But yeah, Robert, that's where I kind of started. That decrease in students over those 3 years is something we're going to have to deal with, and that's going to be across the board. It's not going to just be in technology or that type of purchase. It's going to be across the board.
I also don't think we know what's going to happen with the future of books either. So is that going to become more something that you'll use a Chromebook? Is that cost going to still remain the same cost to download those books on a Chromebook? Or is the cost going to change? And maybe if we got lucky right now, it's not the case, but maybe the cost will go down in that capacity so we can use some of those resources. There's a lot of unknowns, I think, of what it's going to look like in technology.
Yep. And as far as overall budget impact, Robert, it's really hard to predict right now because one, school finance is really complicated to begin with, and two, this is a problem that's affecting many, many, many districts across the state right now, especially right now with the drop in an overall public school enrollment that we saw this year. So, that's something to stay tuned to as we move forward and try to work with our local, lawmakers and try to figure this out.
I also looked at the declining numbers of students in K-12 across the state of Wisconsin over the next 5 years. And there's a significant decline in school-age children in the state of Wisconsin. I don't know how they're projecting it. I don't know how they decide those numbers, but I was plenty surprised by that. If you Google it, I think you would be too. Because when I saw this, I was just trying to figure out what the state looked like. A higher number of people retired and a lower number of K-12 students.
I think that there's so many complexities in that, and one of the things that most districts in the state saw was 4-year-olds not going to 4-year-old kindergarten. So then if in fact, by the end of the summer, things are better under control, will those kids return? And then the parents have decided to, homeschool their kids for the reasons of that, will they return or not? I think it's like rolling a pair of dice, and you really don't know until we get to into next year, and then we will have a better idea. And I think, it's even harder for bigger districts, as hard as it is for us. How do you begin in a district like, even La Crosse to predict what's going to happen? It's going to be difficult.
Right.
Budgeting will be very hard this year.
Mike's gonna earn a salary here.
Well, and there was, one of the resolutions talked about, a hold harmless
Yep.
or
For enrollment.
and we do have, like I explained, we do have a hold harmless amount in a declining enrollment exemption. But, dropping 33 summer school FTEs down to 4 or 5 that we had this summer,
Yep.
that's going to impact our district. I mean, that's for sure it is. And we didn't have the expenses. But yeah, it's, and when you're used to that revenue limit on those, that makes a difference.
And I think Mike's kind of report that he made up, that 15 to 20 swing that we, that's a very logical number, I feel, where, hey, this could swing either way, about 15 to 20 kids. And when we look at that overall dollar amount over a 3 year, I mean, we're talking about a significant chunk of money either way. And, be interesting to see over the next, year or so what happens here. And obviously we're going to do everything we can to get as many families here, either back or in school, those that would have been in a 4K situation, now coming into school. So we're going to do everything we can. And obviously we can only control what we can control.
Hopefully some of those students that I know are educationally have had some difficulties because of everything. Hopefully maybe this summer we can find a way to incorporate more students in, and obviously some of that funding would be available to do more targeted intervention for those students that are really struggling.
It was one of the first things we had on the list was, what are we gonna do for summer school?
And I think that that's the direction that many districts are going to go. And then it becomes finding that delicate balance now in teachers and saying, yep, I mean, there are many students that could say, you don't need a summer break. You're going to go the entire summer to try to catch up as much as we can. And finding that balance between, providing that quality instruction for our kiddos and not burning our teaching staff out in a very, very stressful year. So it's going to be a delicate balance, as everything has been throughout the year, but we do have to acknowledge that where, this is what, many teachers count on and didn't get last year as far as additional salary. But we also want to make sure that we're not burning our staff out to a point that is just unhealthy as well, and giving them that well-deserved rest that they need.
Well, there's data to show, your 4-year-old kindergarten, your students that attend 4-year-old kindergarten do much better long-term by just attending that program. And by not attending that program for whatever reason, what kind of additional services are those students going to need? Are they going to be as prepared or not? I'm sure there's a million variables with that as well. So
undoubtedly, Kathy will see an increase in students that need speech and language therapy because they didn't. That is probably one area that you can almost bet the farm on, because they didn't come to school, didn't have access to them, and they are going to be in need of things. So that's gonna be an area.
Well, and I think more schools are going to be talking to the topic of year-round school. You know, is that going to be an option in our district? You know, once again, that's something administrators will discuss on what that looks like. Is that something that's doable? What's the flexibility with the state? But is that something families want? Is that something that we could do affordably? Do we have the space? Do we have the staff? You know, all of those things. But I have been reading about, you know, more schools considering that, especially with the summer slide and knowing that students are behind already because of COVID. So there's just a lot of options to spend that money.
And as I said, it's nothing that has to be by June 30th of this year. It is, you know, both of them, and they did look to me like they extended out the one more year to 2023. So
Yep.
We can have a moderately longer range approach as opposed to our normal June 30th. You know, how are we going to spend this? So we can be a little bit more strategic and input. You know, because you've all mentioned great things that we've already discussed and will continue to discuss. The pre-K to K in first grade, that's something that I think, Pat, you'd have to agree, that's already been discussed and okay, so how can we plan and, you know, what will our class sizes look like next year in those areas? We really don't know. We really don't know.
I mean, you could even see that maybe some high school students decide they want to graduate early, and maybe they want an option if there's some group of students and some teachers that want to teach some courses, because COVID has just affected their life plan. You know, I could just see there's just so many different things that you could do to try to meet the needs of students with all of the changes that have occurred. I don't know. Good luck to you. How's that? District administrator, school updates?
Yeah,
COVID,
so
safety.
we've had some things going on. I know you guys have heard about, you know, quite a few. I think we'll just touch on a couple of them. We're really excited as an admin team to join with CISA and start a process of what's called continuous improvement. And so this is just really putting in a system that's in place that you're scheduling when you're going to be looking at data, what data you're going to be looking at, and then trying to come up with you know, again, that system that focuses on growth constantly. You're never done, right? And but without, you know, having that system in place, it's very difficult, because we always are, you know, we're always focused on the data. We spend some time with it, but this is really going to solidify a process for us, and we're extremely excited about that opportunity to partner with them and really take a look at that through not only our lens, but then seeking a lot of input from everyone on staff. We will be starting with the district administration and then also going and creating a continuous improvement almost teams at each building, because each building is so different. We've got a district lens that we look through, and then each building, you know, I can't imagine the different conversations that Pat and Jason have on a day-to-day basis. It's just, you know, it's just different. And so we're excited about that piece. Another update is as of today at 7:45 p.m. on the 18th of January, testing is moving forward in the state of Wisconsin. I know that they're torn at the top end at DPI with the value that you get on an assessment piece and that stress that's also added to the staff and students. And so I think that there are two schools of thought, and one of them being, hey, this is probably not the best year to get a real representation of students' abilities and achievement. And there's also a pocket that is stating now is it's more important than ever to know where kids are lagging in skills and where we need to be spending our time and our effort and our energy. And so I think there's merit to both arguments, and it'll be very interesting to see what the state decides. And so the state, the Department of Education is the one that from the federal level is the one that kind of requires this. And then the state at DPI has decided how we do that. And so that's what the forward and the ACT at this point in time. And so we're going to continue to keep our eyes on that. And Krista has been working already at setting up how that's going to look. I think our staff is is not super looking forward to another testing season, but we'll be ready for it, as that is the requirement right now, and we'll be ready for that. Summer school is something that we're starting to take a look at, really trying to understand what the needs are and how do we adjust from a year where, I mean, we pushed pause for a long time, and then Pat came in, and then we're like, hey, go. That really was kind of the process. And obviously that's not the best process unless you want to keep doing that, Pat. We'll continue to talk about it and look at and network with other schools as far as what they're going to do as well. And adjusting. Most schools had a pretty robust program a couple summers ago, and then last summer everything was flipped on it to its head. And so it's an opportunity for us to look at restructuring that program and really making it what we want it to be moving forward. As far as COVID updates, there are plenty to go around, as there are every single meeting. So big ones that we're focusing on right now are looking at the data and where we're trending. And if you look around the state, Wisconsin has been trending in the right direction. And that's exciting in and of itself. If you looked today on the Harvard website, we were the lowest county in the state of Wisconsin. I don't know when the last time that happened, if it ever has, I don't know. So again, also exciting news. As far as internal numbers, we've seen we had a peak there in that early November phase. Hopefully a peak, I guess, to this point, the peak, and then a steady decline. And now it's kind of flattened out. We do not have the impact that we had in November, not on our student body nor on our staff. And so, again, all great news. Their other big point is educators as of right now are in what's called 1B when we're talking about a vaccine for the COVID-19. And 1A workers are, I believe, about finishing up right now. We'll see as far as the medical providers in the state of Wisconsin. Within 1B, though, there are, I believe the number is something like 800 million throughout the country that are in 1B. So we are the largest group of people. And so we're going to work and continue to advocate for educators being, put further and further up that list. And it's so difficult because you're fighting for education, but you're also understanding that, hey, police officers and EMTs and everything, everybody else is also, kind of vying for these 1B vaccines. And so we're excited about that. We're anticipating, hopefully getting solidified plans over the next 2 or 3 weeks. And starting that, we have had a few staff members that were considered 1A. With some of their, just their job duties. And so we have had a few vaccines already administered, but we're excited for that to be the norm. We did have a great response when surveying the staff. In the vast majority of our staff would like to receive that vaccine. And so, that obviously lends to, our conversation as most districts have began to have the conversation of when to transition back to 5 days a week and for our older kiddos or period, depending on the situation, as every district, even in our little county, every district is so different in what they're doing right now and what their plans are in the future. So within those conversations, I think for us, the exciting piece is we definitely want kids back. We also want to do it in as safe a way as possible. Not only for our staff, but for our students as well. And so I think every step that we take here as the trend is coming back, kind of down to earth and we're also getting the vaccine is pointing in the right direction. So we're excited to start those conversations over the next couple of weeks as far as when that transition can happen, all contingent upon what happens. If this takes a turn, goes a different direction. I think you guys have heard me say this before, and that's as of January, at that time, because everything changes so quickly. So I think that's one skill that was that not only has been acquired by our staff and administration, but has been necessary for us to acquire, that is flexibility and being ready to adjust even the most well-laid plans and being ready for that. Any questions on anything that I went through before I bounce to the next? Yep.
So COVID,
Mhm.
I heard that Janesville teachers are getting vaccinated. Is it this Friday or
They
next?
may or may not be,
So,
that's up in the
yeah.
air.
I mean,
They
I
jumped the
saw
gun.
an article about
Yeah.
it.
Yep, they
Yep.
jumped the gun.
And I don't want to get too far into that.
So we just don't know. That's a good enough answer.
We just don't know. Yep.
Okay.
And so again, we know that we're going to be in the 1B category, and we're excited to start that process whenever we're given the go ahead.
Okay,
Mhm.
because I read that
Yep.
and I thought, huh.
Yes, there is a lot going on when you're talking about, there's there's requirements coming out from the federal level, the state level, the county level, that are all, receiving different information at different times. And so right now it's interesting, depending on who you talk to and who they talk to last. And so we're gonna be ready, and we'll go from there.
I will
yep.
share, I am pretty familiar just because of the healthcare business. Not many, and I can't give you the statistics because they're not charting it as I thought that they would, but from those that we know in healthcare that have had the first shot, and I'm talking both Pfizer and Moderna, sore arm,
Mhm.
and I'm sure you're reading about these same types of things. Many people are having experiences that are more complicated than that. There are some that are having some, but most are not. And then shot 2, there's a larger population that is having some side effects. And so I know in giving the second shot, there's a real discussion about rotating, like don't give everyone the same shot on the same day, because then when you have to give the second shot, you have to give everyone the second shot within a couple of days,
Mhm.
and you could not have enough staff.
Right.
So
Yep.
that's the only thing that I wanted to add to that.
Yep, and just to clarify with everything, I think we can start having that conversation over the next, 2-3 weeks, if numbers continue that way. That's not saying that we will be back in school within the next couple, as far as 5 days a week within the next couple of weeks. But I think this is promising. And again, I want to just make sure that we're clear with that, so there's no misunderstanding there, as districts around the state are doing so many different things. Some of them are focused on solely one metric. Some of them have 15 different metrics. Some aren't looking at data at all, anymore, and just making their decisions. And so we're going to be, aware and taking, a methodical approach as we have since the beginning. And so
There are some districts going back.
that's the plan. Yep.
Right,
Yep.
next week or so
Yep.
it'll be
Mhm.
interesting to watch.
Yeah, and some have already adjusted, again, as we're going, and some have adjusted the other way very quickly, and said, hey, next week we're coming back. And so I don't feel, again, we need to work on a transition plan where everybody is not necessarily going to be comfortable. We know that comfort is not something that everybody is going to get to either way. And so we're going to continue to work and make sure that our teachers are supported and our students are supported whenever that transition comes back.
I also read on Friday that the National Guard, Governor Evers, has 9 groups of National Guard members and healthcare workers, some volunteers actually, and they're starting with these 9 groups and then hopeful to expand the National Guard presence in delivering the vaccine, which should be helpful too in
Absolutely.
moving that forward.
Yep. Another thing that I do want to make a note of is the county released a quarantine guidelines for the general public that were shorter. And that was a 7-day, a 10-day, and a 14-day quarantine period. And after a lot of looking into it by our county and seeking guidance from DHS and CDC, they have come up with new recommendations for the schools saying that that is not appropriate to do these shorter quarantine periods. We know how difficult that is to hear, especially for our staff or students that have already been quarantined. It's tough to hear. But when you look at the recommendations that were originally published by CDC, it's hard to go back into a large group, and schools by that definition were a large group of people. And so as we're coming forward, they have stated and now come out and modified those recommendations and stated that it will be a 2-week period, that 14 days that we had been doing up through maybe the 4th of January. I mean, up to before we, when we came back. So that's another update. Obviously, could change as everything has throughout this process. But as of right now, that will be the recommendation for the county for all schools within the county. Anything else between school updates and COVID-19 updates? Any questions? Okay. Safety planning. This is something that we have been working on with our end of the year reports for our DOJ grants, and really starting to just peel that first layer of that onion back and just say, okay, what has been done, what hasn't been done, and how can we improve the safety procedures and protocols within all of our buildings. And I think one tool, one person that has been a great resource for us has been Brandon Larson, and that will continue through the county and the emergency management process. And so we just started kind of having those conversations again that I believe you guys started in the spring of last year. You guys were working on things, and then COVID hit. So we'll be working on how does this look? How do we know? How do we make sure that all kids know what's expected of them in an emergency situation? And staff as well. How do we make sure that they are aware of what's expected of them? And so we will continue through that process. Any other updates with that, Mike, that you can think of? Okay. So again, this has been something where, not that safety is, as far as building safety has been put on a back burner in any way. We just need to continually bring it to the forefront that, hey, this doesn't go away because we're in a pandemic. This is still, we need to make sure that we're keeping everyone safe. As our goal is to educate kids, but our number one priority is to make sure everybody gets home safe, and that will continue to be.
And as Tom mentioned, that we've got the ALICE program, and so our staff will be doing a refresher, and those new staff that have been hired since we went through the full will be able to do an online full. But what we were working on last spring was the reunification side, almost after the ALICE, if you will. How do we get parents to pick up their students in an orderly, safe, because obviously it's a very stressful time, and depending on which building, it will look different based on did this building get evacuated and that building not. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an active shooter or an act of violence. It could be a gas leak. It could be a bad fire or whatever. I mean, explosion in the science room, it could be anything. And so we've got to be ready for that. And we don't have a real well-known by our staff and our administration evacuation plan that then we could roll out. And we were working with emergency management and all the local, including Westby, because where we're located, we could really help each other out in that, assuming that we both wouldn't have a tragedy on the same day. Again, you could. But yes, that's where we were at, and we need to pick that back up again. Yep.
And so again, just kind of bringing that to the forefront as it always needs to be. We need to be prepared for that in case of any of those things that Mike just described. Any questions about that?
The only thing I can say to that is it helps students in their home. It also helps people when they're out, I mean, in a typical world, out someplace other than their home. But having a fire, I can tell you that it helped my students, my children, from their experiences at school, to be more prepared and know what to do in an emergency like that. So it's beneficial on a lot of levels.
All right, thank you guys.
Administrator reports, high school 8th grade planning, Jason and John. Now, if you guys don't mind, how about if there's 3 topics for Jason. Jason, do you want to go ahead and speak to all 3?
Sure.
That's okay?
Yeah, it's almost weird to think that we're at that point of year, that we're planning for next year already. But we are in the works for, Mrs. Schneider has been out in the guidance classes with 8th graders, getting the course booklets in their hand, getting the materials, just thinking about not only registering for freshman year, but, developing 4-year plans and going through that whole process. So she has been able to get out into the classroom. We did decide, instead of having, you get different classes in this 8th grade class that's large, you could probably be in excess of 300 people if you had them all come in. So we are going to do the typical evening night via Zoom. That'll actually be next Monday. Same basic presentation, same information, everything, just a different format, which hopefully it'll still meet those needs, but we're definitely at that point of year that, we're getting ready to welcome the class of 2025 in and figure out how to graduate the class of 2021. Because that's not that far away from today either. So I think, just kind of going through those process and feels like in many ways, I think I put in my board report to the members, feels like in many ways the year just started. In other ways, it feels like we've done 4 years or so already this year. So, but it's an exciting time, and obviously we want to make that transition as smooth as possible. Also, this week we're finishing up first semester. Next semester starts next week already. So going through that semester change, which always makes it a stressful time. Although Katrina's probably done with most of her finals, if not all of them. So it's probably a little bit relaxing maybe than previous nights have been, but to make through that transition, and that transition is more challenging for teachers this year. You think that the hybrid model has a lot of benefits, but there's some challenges that come with it. And, over the next week, the teachers are going to be making an A and a B classroom for each of their hours, for Google Classroom, and just working on seating charts so that, kids first hour don't sit the same place second hour, just to try to mitigate some of those health risks. So there's a lot of transitions going on during that time, but it's hard to believe in some ways that we're halfway through the school year. Winter curriculars, we're more than halfway through winter curriculars, with the second fall season coming up and everything kind of getting crunched together. Still definitely an adventure. Eric and I talked today. Fortunately, we've had a pretty good stretch of weather, so we haven't had to reschedule for weather things. But just kind of following the different rules and rules changing and different things, and how, different, like wrestling rules, we've had the wrestling rules, they can only wrestle once in 7 days. Well, that could not only affect this week's event, but could affect the following week. The state came out and changed wrestling now and opened it up so you can do more than just duels. That was within the last week. So once you get everything that you feel like you're right there and you haven't set it up, there's a rule or two that gets changed, and sometimes for the good. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't create more and more time as far as that. But and even Eric and I joked last week, we are safe to say Eric has had a tape measure in the gym more this year than all of us combined, because, just to try to figure out how we can get the most spectators possible, but in a safe manner. So, the tape measure has been out, and we've counted spots in the gyms a lot of times this year, just, to figure that out and to coordinate with other schools that are in different places and different thought process throughout the lines too. So it's definitely been a challenge. I think, like a lot of things probably in 2021, it's something we hope we don't have to go through again. Although I guess we'd be more prepared to some degree going into it. And, we can tell you pretty specific numbers of how many feet and everything and different things. So Eric continues to do a great job and communicate, bounce ideas off Tom, Mike, and me, and so we can go in and watch it with a tape measure and just continue to give students as many opportunities as possible, especially opportunities that have some degree of normalcy, and for the parents and the viewers too, to try to make it as good a possible experience, but at the same time making sure that, like Tom said earlier, that safety is always a priority too. So.
Well, roughing, I mean, it's not just students and games and buses.
Yep.
You only have X number of reps and you have to have so many. And I have a friend that refs and you're canceled constantly and then you're out to, rep 4 games another night just because of everything going on. I don't know how they're doing it. It's gotta be amazing.
Well, they've had less spectators yelling at them. So there's probably, I'm sure, some definite positives and negatives that come along with it. But yeah, I think just the overall flexibility of everybody throughout the process, it's all about the kids and trying to make it so it's as positive experience as possible.
Well, Tom mentioned in his report that they're adding the number of viewers, parents.
Yep.
So that's measuring all over again.
Yeah, and our measuring is a little bit more challenging. If for those that have gone around different places, our gym is probably half the size of another gym in the conference.
Right.
I mean, so it's we have to be somewhat strategic as far as how we can do it and do it in a safe manner.
That's all of them, correct? So a question that I have with the semester change, I'm wondering if you'll be able to give a report again next month or sometimes shortly after that. I think it's a cleaning machine.
Yeah, the cleaning.
At first, I thought it was something different. As to, you had searched what the grading was of our students and how they did overall. I think it was a failure rate actually that you gave us. And I was wondering if perhaps you could do that again.
Yeah, we can definitely. We're always monitoring it. Similarly, I mean, I think we'll see a little shift in what percent of students are doing the hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to probably see a transition of some more coming back. And I mean, it's just, I don't think we could devalue the days in person.
Oh, absolutely.
And devalue the work that our staff does. So there's definitely some, we can kind of keep you up to date as far as how all the processes are going. So.
Is there going to be an ability for a student that does fail to perhaps retake that class next semester, or if just numbers are too tight?
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely have to monitor the numbers to make sure that we, are doing everything in a safe manner. We've always historically, we almost run more of a collegiate model at the high school, where if a kid wants to retake it, they can keep the better grade and the lower grade just goes away.
Okay, great.
Which is beneficial.
Sure.
I mean, because as far as the final look of your transcript, definitely beneficial. It may, if things don't go well, it may decrease your ability to graduate earlier, things like that. I mean, there's going to be some, I don't know, repercussions or whatever word you want to use with it. But yeah, I think there's the definite possibility of, trying to get the best education possible. And I think, and we've spoken at times too, I think students, and maybe this is looking at the positive in the situation, I think whether we like it or not, students are probably going to come through this process more independent, more able to manage their own time, more able to do different things. So I had a conversation with a peer just the other day, and one of the peers was saying they're thinking the post-secondary schools are probably the ones that are going to benefit a lot, because a lot of these students are going to probably be able to make that transition almost easier, having gone through, not that we would wish this on anybody,
Sure.
Obviously, but there's definitely, I think, some intangibles that are probably going to come out of it that may be very positive.
And we want our students to learn the information. We know everyone learns differently, so this could provide an opportunity for perhaps them to get a little bit more in depth or make sure they have a clear understanding in a certain topic.
Do we know how many are returning after fully virtual first semester?
You know, high school wise, I would guess of the students that did the 5-day online, I would guess we will probably have 10 to 15% less that choose that option second semester.
And
Interesting.
is that true in each building or just, I mean, I know we're talking high school right now, but maybe at some point somebody can address if that's the same in each building and.
Maybe next month you could give us a report on that if you don't
We can
know.
definitely do that, yep.
We'll know a lot better next.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, we
Right.
absolutely know, absolutely know, yep.
Or even in an update.
Yes.
It'd be interesting to know, you know, I know there's been some that have had some changes, you know, throughout the year, but
Yes.
the overall ask was semester, so, be good to know what the change is.
Mhm.
As people are feeling more confident and comfortable
Right.
with being in the building.
Middle school has just about the same amount of students. They have about 15 returning virtual, then I think 2 going.
Okay,
Elementary probably has about 10-ish coming back in person.
okay. Interesting. That's great. Any other questions for Jason? With that, John, your turn.
Yeah, so adding on about the high school transition, Mrs. Carl works with Jenny, and her part in it is she talks to the 8th graders. You may remember some of this, because 8th graders are still learning some of the vocabulary, like the word prerequisite. Some 8th graders really know what that means, and some are learning it. 4-year plan. When an 8th grader looks at the block schedule, and it's kind of fun in a certain way because they can sort of mastermind, they can get all their math out of the way and then take all these electives the last 2 years and all this time and all this schedule. And it really doesn't work that way. You know, depending on how you look at it.
And a pandemic.
So yeah, but you know, she has discussions of that nature. Regardless of the preparation of a student by themselves or by us or the student, getting personally and socially ready, academically ready, there's still that worry, the fear. I'm sure as Katrina looks back when she was in 8th grade, as confident she was, there's still a level of worry. And as confident as she is about graduating from high school, what is next? It's a big step. A lot of us in this room have been there. And so there's still that anxiety and that emotion that goes with it. So she talks to students about that. You'll be ready, try to be as confident as possible. Just take it slowly, you can do it. So there's some of that in her counselor role as well. We usually take our students to Western and to a career day in lacrosse, which we think is very valuable. It kind of just shows the 8th graders for real. It's just not us telling you this, but there is a big world out there. So we want them to see that, feel that, and experience that a little bit. So the unfortunate part is it didn't happen last year. It won't probably happen this year over the course. So those things are kind of bummers for students, but we still will try to talk about it. So, and then Ms. Carls will bring in a few 8th graders or high school students to talk to the 8th graders. And that's kind of a fun conversation because they get to 8th graders ask all sorts of questions. And some of the questions are really kind of fun and curious because 8th graders have some interesting perceptions of what high school is and what to expect and what it's not. And so they do have some fun with it as well. So Ms. Carls is involved in that to some extent. Winter athletics. We are fortunate, just like we started meeting off with Mr. Thu here, it's so hard to verbalize how important the arts and athletics are to students and the specials classes, all of them. Because if we were a system with just the 4 core classes, it would be hard to balance everything off and to have a student find their place, their connections, their motivation, and all of the good stuff that happens here. So it is wonderful that we were able to pull off having music and athletics. So girls basketball is happening right now, and that should wrap up about the middle of February. They're scheduled to have 8 or 9 games. 2 have been postponed. The one unique thing we were able to do this year is to bring up some 6th graders to play. Typically, 6th graders are not involved in basketball. But because of the lower numbers, there are about 13 girls who have played up. So they are excited about that. And our wrestling, we had a number of athletes just pass this year for their own good reasons. So we've had a more limited number. And we didn't think initially at the top of the season we would have any matches. But we have been able to have some competitions. I think there are 3 scheduled. And we should wrap up wrestling at the end of January. So you know, the seasons haven't been the most complete, but we have had them and given the students that want to be involved some experience, and that's been wonderful. So we're thankful that has been able to happen at that level. So.
Do you think, John, that since the 6th graders are here 5 days a week, that perhaps that's why there's a larger number of them wanting to participate? Because they're already here, or no?
No, it's just, we have some classes that just have, you know, 2 or 3 years ago, I don't know if they're freshman or sophomore now, the basketball program really took a dip because we had 12 gymnasts.
Yeah.
It was just a class or a couple of grades that were just, yeah, it just kind of ebbs and flows.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some years our volleyball numbers, we have 37th graders out for volleyball and then 30 out for basketball, but right now they're just low numbers. And I don't know if there's a good explanation for it. It's just the way it is.
I just read a really interesting article about touring higher education. And the one thing COVID has done in a positive way is all of these campuses are now providing the opportunity for a virtual tour. And it's closing the gap of equity because those that wouldn't have had transportation or the financial means to go to a university are now able to have that experience virtually and see what a campus looks like and what might be offered there. I don't know if you guys are utilizing that very much, but my understanding is that all of the universities, a majority of them are offering that, and that could be a really nice opportunity for our students.
Mrs. Carl's maybe, I don't know if she's watching or not, she may be thinking about that, we just haven't talked about it, so, but I will be sure to think that over.
I know there are some things on Western's campus. I don't know if they've created 100% virtual. I know they have for some areas, but it just gives, you know, hands-on experiences, what the room looks like, what the class is, whether it's woodworking or whether you're taking a chemistry course or something. So I thought it was of interest.
It's gonna sound like an advertisement for Western. They're just our local.
Right.
So,
UW Lacrosse.
So if you've never been to Western, their programs are wonderful. Their facilities and technology is wonderful. It is top notch, and it's great to have students see that because sometimes I don't know, you know, depending on their family or their social groups, what they think of Western or even Richland or some of the other options. Until they see it and get a sense of it, it like really opens their eyes. Their heavy equipment program, the mechanic, it's really, really impressive. And
there's some nice 2+2 options now that didn't exist just a couple of years ago, and those are just fantastic. Their nursing program working with Viroqua, and they're working with Stevens Point and an engineering program, I believe. And so anyway, there's just some really nice options.
There are a lot of nice options.
And hopefully that will expand with some of the COVID conversations that people are having now. They're hopeful that the UW system might become a little bit easier to work with. We'll see. But thank you for that. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, student board report. It looks like Katrina is all on her own. So you are prepared, you have a PowerPoint, right? Just kidding.
We have been doing a lot of planning.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. So next week is kindness week. So on Wednesday, we're gonna be doing, tie blankets. And that's like not for the whole school. I think that's just gonna be student council. And then we're gonna be donating those to Joanne's, and then I believe that they deliver them to either nursing homes or like animal shelters that need them. And then I think 2 weeks from now, February 8th through the 19th is cabin fever week, but it's 2 weeks now because we're only in school 2 days. So for that, we're doing door decorating, which is something we would normally do during like before Thanksgiving break, but since we didn't get to do that, we're doing it now. And then we're also gonna do like an activity block during fourth block one of the days. So either board games or movies or sledding, I think. And that would be something where like you have to sign up before so that you have to stay in the room and we're not getting everyone all over the place. So yeah, that is pretty much it.
That sounds great. So the Lions Club, Jason, did they ever give us a donation like for the community giving that they wanted to give us? Did we ever apply for that?
The Jefferson Award.
Yes, did we ever get that? No, not.
Um,
The only reason I ask is because it's for just what Katrina is talking about, for a community project, and it was gonna be $1,000. So I don't know how you apply for it, but it could cover whatever costs they have.
Yeah, we can look into it.
I
That
have
would
the
be,
contact, the former contact, I think it's still the current contact on that one.
I think so. And it's
Angie and I both had multiple contacts with that person.
we'll just give you that.
That doesn't make sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense.
I guess, in case he has a different officer position. No.
I think it's the same person, and the application, I think they make pretty simple that they have $1,000. So that'd be a great opportunity to utilize. I mean, I don't know how you guys were planning on doing it, but if we could utilize those dollars, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
And then you could do something else with other money that you have.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. So do you guys do any cross-country skiing?
Someone actually brought that up, like an idea for the activity day, and I think we just decided
No.
no, just because like equipment, I don't know, do we have?
Eric
Maybe there
used
is
to
for
have,
gym.
remember our kids used to
I
cross-country
don't
No,
know.
and
ski.
actually, they've purchased, about 3 to 4 years ago, we purchased another couple of lots from up at Pete's.
Blue Dog.
And Blue Dog and outfitted, I can't remember how many, probably not enough to do student body.
Yeah.
You could do FIAD classes.
Yeah,
but
we
there's
did
a big
FIAD
difference.
classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did FIAD classes.
Cross country.
So,
Yeah, I think we just kind of figured most people would prefer sledding.
Sure.
Anyway, so.
without question.
Well, that hill's really slick right now.
Yeah, I bet.
Wet snow and then that hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds fun. So do you know, there's a television program that they play chess. Do you know, have you heard anything from our student population of like an increase in interest in chess?
I have not.
No
heard anything
idea.
about that.
Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yep,
Yeah.
it's on Netflix.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I have been reading about younger folks like yourselves. It's really become something that people are engaged with.
And
because
it'll
of
be
it.
interesting, as Katrina said, with the activity time, because we're gonna give the teachers a little bit of a, hey, what would you like to host in your room? Because it's amazing, sometimes the teachers' interests aren't that much different than the
Sure.
students' interests, and it's a good way to connect common interests too.
Sure.
But it is surprising at times, the interest level. I think a few years ago, my last school, pre-COVID, we did a similar type of thing. I was amazed how many high school kids wanted to get into a room and color.
Yeah.
It's just like it shocked me because we were trying to like plan out space for, where to better put things and to do, and there are like the adult coloring type of relaxing activities, or, for people who, may struggle in a meeting to be able to kind of multitask a little bit and distract yourself. I'm not talking about you, Tom. But if you want to try that, please do, but those type of activities and to make that type of connection, especially that might have a teacher that is interested in similar things to students. So
Color by numbers, that's been an increased sale item because people are looking for something to do. They might not be an artist, but I have too much time on my hands, obviously. But like TikTok exploring, there's just all kinds of fun stuff out there. Well, thank you. I hope it's a lot of fun, and thank you for attending. If you ever have any questions, obviously you have the resource in your own home. But
We talk school board all the time.
I'm sure that's all the
Tangled, like,
you guys get together with the Tubans and all?
How about
All the
Robert's,
time.
like Robert's rules and all that good stuff. So anyway, we are happy to work with you in any capacity that you would like. So thank you. The next item is board report, WASB legislative update. I know that we have spoken about having some legislators come to our meetings, and that's something that's in the works. I will tell you, I have reached out to Brad Taft, and I've also reached out to Governor Evers and also to Ron Kind in the last week. As I said, I have a lot of time on my hands, and it's basically about school funding and COVID testing and the vaccine and topics like that, and they have been wonderful to actually respond. So that's been good. And I know you're working on some scheduling, so we look forward to what that is going to look like. And I don't know if we're going to be able to do something that we include the community as a Zoom meeting so that we're able to engage them on a larger scale, which may be of more interest to our legislators. I know Ron Kind has a lot going on this week at the Capitol, and we talked about that a little bit as well. 2021 WASB convention starts Wednesday. I flipped through the magazine, Beth has registered us, and I went and looked at how we're going to be able to view the breakout sessions. It looks pretty simple. Of course, I will mess it up. I will be calling you, Beth. You can just add it to your calendar. Angie will call me at 8:15 Wednesday morning because she will not be able to access the information.
If I know Beth, it's already on her calendar. She's got it already.
But it looks like there's some really good boardsmanship breakout sessions. I was pretty pleased with it when I was looking at what was listed, and I hope all of you are able to watch at some level, if not this week, then throughout the entire year. And as I stated before, whenever you are able to watch, please let Beth know, or myself or Tom, and we'll add it to the agenda so you can speak to your experience.
I do want to add, just on Thursday at 11, there is one that would be, I think, of interest to everybody, and that's by Drew Howick and John Bales. And they're talking about taking your board, as a board from good to great. And I think that was one that many superintendents and people that have been talking to, that's been they're one that they've been talking about.
Are you saying we're not great?
I am not saying that. I'm saying that all of the things you may talk about next, that may help, with that trend, as we move forward.
Yeah, that looked very good, actually. Thank you for that. And the board workshop, I went through in my notes and put what I thought was said. I would really like everybody to look at those notes And I sent it to Tom this morning, and he and Beth have added a couple of things to it, which I found to be really good information too. But please, I guess the best way to do this would probably be for you to tell Beth versus, I don't want to be a walking quorum in this. So any changes, corrections, or additions, please tell her what you would like added to it, and we will certainly do that. I am far from perfect, ask my husband. So I tried to keep as good of notes as possible, but I might have not listed something or said something in a way you think should be different. I'd like to thank you all for all your feedback. It was great feedback, and I think we got some really good information from it. I would like Beth to schedule a data retreat for us. So when it's convenient for you and Tom to find some dates that work, send those out to the board, and hopefully we will have that pretty soon. And during that time, we will also talk about defining some of the terminology that I have in this workshop summary that we didn't have definitions that would be really helpful to move forward to. Anything else?
Move, we adjourn.
The only other thing before we adjourn,
We've been at it for an hour and a half.
we have to congratulate Kathy Reed, because she has, don't you have a daughter that's getting married? So, congratulations. And with that, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Nobody
All
wants to
here
ask
say
that question.
aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Have a good night.